Hey everyone, and welcome to the Best Friends at Work podcast with your BFAWs, Yeo Gin
and Emily Trimino. Hi guys, today we are gonna give you our top 10 TV shows from 2020. And I don't know if this is like they came out in 2020, but really just like what we watched in 2020. And I know there was not a lot of sports going on. There was not a lot of new filming going on. Hopefully this might give you guys some more options of maybe something you haven't seen.
Yeah, and I was actually kind of disappointed because I expected them to release more entertainment this past year.
I know.
Because you know that they have it on back catalog because every like 6 months you'll see a new Bruce Willis movie and you're like, when did you make this movie? So I'm like, I know you have things in the vault that you can release, Hollywood.
Remember when they started releasing like Christmas stuff and it was like July, and like they were just releasing like everything Christmas or like replaying Christmas movies because people were just like running out of stuff to do, and I guess that makes people happy. But I remember that and I was like, gosh, I wonder if they're gonna start releasing, and they just never really did.
Yeah, I thought eventually they were going to, but yeah, you're right, they never did. And maybe it was just they wanted inventory because they knew they couldn't record anything new. And also they're probably trying to make up their money once the theaters open up again.
That was my thought too.
But then like TV shows though, all the pilots that you thought were sucky, just put them up.
Right.
All the pilots like got canceled or didn't get the funding.
You never know it's going to be like a hit. Like, what was the tiger one? That was a hit.
Oh my gosh, the Tiger King?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I never watched it.
Me neither.
But I just know like that ended up being a hit and people were like, what?
This is the craziest story ever. Yeah. No, but I totally expected them to have more in terms of shows. But I will say that out of the shows that we did watch or catch up on, I was very excited about my top 5 list.
Okay, well, let's start with one of yours.
Okay. So my all-time favorite show from 2020 was the miniseries The Last Dance, all about Michael Jordan and the 1990s Bulls dynasty. It was just so inspiring and uplifting, and it was such like a feel-good sports documentary. So growing up, the Bulls were the best. The Bulls and the Dallas Cowboys were like the best teams in the country. If you were a fan, you loved them. If you were a fan of any other team, you hated them. And the only sports that I know is 90s sports because that's when it was playing in our house. And I remember like hating the Bulls because they always won. But everyone loved Michael Jordan. And I didn't really know anything about Michael Jordan other than the fact that he was the world's greatest basketball player of all time and an amazing actor from Space Jam. Have you ever seen Space Jam?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So
welcome to the Space Jam.
Space Jam. I'll auto-tune that if I can. But this Bulls dynasty, like I always thought like Michael Jordan was the main one and he was the reason why they won and he was the best. But then in watching this documentary, you realize like how talented that whole team was and everything that had to come into play for them to win as many championships as they did. And the fact that it wasn't just like Michael Jordan was God's gifts to basketball, but he had such an amazing work ethic and drive and determination that got him to those championships. Like he practiced, he hustled, he was committed, and he had like this really stubborn, crazy way of thinking that just made him successful. Like he had no other choice but to be successful, and I admire that so much in a person.
Yeah, it's not like he just grew up tall and was good at basketball.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people think that.
Right.
You know?
And even, I don't know if you know who Dennis Rodman is.
I do not.
Okay. So Dennis Rodman, he was also called the Worm. He had like tie-dye hair. He had piercings. Like he was like way outrageous in the 90s. He published an autobiography and like wore a wedding dress to the book signing. Like he was just like outrageous person. And he was married to Carmen Electra at one point, but he was just an outrageous person. And I just thought like, oh, this guy's like, you know, a whatever on the basketball team. But even his story is inspiring because it goes through each one of the players as well as the coach, and you learn about like how hard they worked to get where they ended up. So we only see a person when they're at like the peak of their success, and you never really know all of the sacrifice and steps that it took to get there. But I just have a whole new appreciation for that whole team, and there's like so much more dimension to each one of those players now because of that miniseries. And I loved it because it gave us like an inspiring, hopeful type of message, especially in the beginning of the whole pandemic when things were so crazy. It was nice to have that as an uplifting moment.
Right. And mindset. I love a good story, or even like a documentary about like an underdog, and like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like when they have something to overcome. I don't know. It makes it so much more fun than just like, oh, they were born wealthy and
stayed wealthy and got wealthier.
Yeah.
Her nose was too big. She got it fixed.
Yeah, like that's. I tried watching Michelle Obama.
Becoming.
Yes. And I couldn't. And somebody had told me they read the book and that there was some really inspiring things in there. And I just was like, okay, I'll try it. And I just couldn't. I never got into it because I just felt like there was nothing really that was like. I mean, yeah, like, you know, Obama was the first Black president and she was the first Black president, first lady and all that. But, you know, I'm sure she's a nice and wonderful person, but there wasn't ever anything that was like, I don't know. It's
like
just
the
never grabbed me.
Oprah story or something, you know, where she came from poverty and she survived child abuse and like all of her story. Yeah. And I understand. Like you were like, I like things that are inspiring, or like these like human stories where you're like, I don't even know how they did that.
Right. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. I want to be blown away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did try a documentary in 2020. It just didn't work out for me.
Was that the only one?
So no, I watched, that's actually one on my list. I don't know if you'd call it a documentary, but The Social Media Dilemma.
Oh, I didn't watch that one.
You didn't watch it? Oh, you got to watch it. It's basically it talks about all the impacts of social media, what it does to people, how it was like originally designed, and this whole thing is based off of all of the people that are really credible within the technology space. So it's like the people that invented Instagram. It's like the IT manager that was, you know, putting Facebook together. Like when they were designing the platform, there was no like moral check-in of like, hey, if we put a like button on there, like what is that going to do for people like 10 years from now? Like how does that, you know, make people react to things on Instagram, and like how does that build like a social pressure? Like they just did it because it was like, hey, that'd be cool. And then we could show counts of how many people are liking things. And like, there was no like moral obligation behind any of it. There was no research done. There was nothing. Like, they just put it together to like, what's going to sell.
Right.
Like, how can we make money off of this? And that was like the way they built it. And then it goes into like them talking about like how they run technology in their own house and like with their own kids.
I've heard that. It's crazy.
And it's really interesting. And like a lot of them say like, oh yeah, like our kids don't have cell phones. They don't have
iPads.
like nothing, because they just don't want that in their life. And
they know how addicting it is and how damaging it is.
Yeah, especially like at a certain age. And it was just incredible. Like I hate technology. Not hate it. I guess I'm just not good at it. Like I'm just never have been. It's never been like, oh, I want to learn how to, you know, do something new on technology. It's just not an interest of mine.
She wears an analog watch.
I wear the old school one where it like ticks, you know?
And talks.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I really liked it. And I thought it was very interesting. Like I've said to a couple of people, like even my parents, like I think it would be interesting for them to watch because they're so out of like the social media world, but like to kind of like give them a screenshot of like what my nephews are probably going to be going through here in a little bit, or, you know what I mean? To kind of just like get them familiar with. And I've always been that type of person. Like, I don't think, and your kids don't have cell phones, but I've always been that type of person. Like, I don't know if I'd get my kid a phone, like when they're in
Probably
school.
not till they're like 15, 16 years old. And then Jesse says it's not going to be a blanket right that everyone gets at a certain age. It depends on their level of responsibility and accountability on whether or not they're ready. And we've actually talked to the kids about it because they have friends who have cell phones right now. And they see our phones and they sometimes play games on them. And I told Miles that I'm like, look, your brain is developing and you are so intelligent that we don't want to do anything to hinder your growth. And having a phone will slow you down because you get so addicted to it. Like the people who create these phones, and probably what they covered in The Social Dilemma, they create it to be addicting, and the algorithms are there, and the sole intent is for you to stay on these apps as long as possible.
And then it's like longer to push stuff on you, sell stuff, give you ads.
Right. But I tell them, I'm like, this all goes back to your brain development. We want to make sure that you have a healthy brain development. By the time you get the phone, you can be responsible to put it down when you need to, like not abuse it in any way. I'm like, but I tell him the same thing about drinking beer and stuff, because he'll see dad drink beer and he's like, do you think I'm gonna ever drink beer? I'm like, yeah, probably. I'm like, but you have to wait until your brain is fully developed, because the chemicals and alcohol will interfere with your growth if you drink it too early. That's why it's better for you to wait. So we try to have these like conversations with the kids to prepare them, and so that they understand why. And I'm not gonna be like, the phone's of the devil, or TV will just rot your brain. Because that's just going to make it like that forbidden fruit that they want even more, you know? And I don't want them to feel like weird, because then they'll resent our rules. I want them to know like why we have it in place, and tie it back to something he thinks is important, because he really thinks that like education is important. Like the other day he brought me like math books, and he's like, I need you to teach me everything you know about fractions.
You're like,
it lasted 3 minutes. And I was like, we need a tutor.
Jesse.
Yeah. But our pastor actually recommended The Social Dilemma and said we should watch it with the boys.
Yeah. And it's so funny to me, because anytime you hear like social media, it was like, oh, it was invented so like you can stay connected, and like, you know, like Facebook and like that. And it wasn't at all. Like that's like such a thing that like they just put out in like the market. Yeah, exactly. So, and even like the whole realm of like social media, like that's why it was, you know, it like had like a fancy, cute spin on it, so people would like buy into it and start using it more and more. Well, and like over Christmas, like, so my nephew has a cell phone. The older one does, but the youngest doesn't. And he was telling me, we were driving to go snowmobiling, and he was telling me, because there was just 4 of us in the car, and him and I were sitting next to each other, and I was asking him about school and things, and he was telling me like in the car, like, oh, well, only one of my friends texted me Happy Christmas, or like Merry Christmas. And it was like he, not that he was judging his Christmas based on like his friends texting him or like what that was like, but you could tell like even just the way he said it, like I could tell he was
disappointed.
Like, yeah, disappointed, and like it was impacting him in a way that like at that age it was like, I wish I could have just like taken that from him and like made that like not an obstacle he was having to deal with at, you know, I think he's 13 now, so it's like, you know what I mean, like just that, those little things of like, you don't think your kids are comparing each other, but like they probably in some way are. And like just that alone was like just one person texting him, like I'm sure he was thinking, well, not all my friends texted me, or you know what I mean? Like you could just tell it was impacting
It's just like
him.
another avenue for a child to feel judged.
Yeah.
You know, like it's hard enough when you're a kid and then you don't get invited to the popular kid's birthday party.
Right.
And then now you go and you look on your phone and you see all the pictures from that birthday party, all the comments and likes. Your birthday comes around, 2 people like it, the same the same 2 people you've been friends with. You don't get like all the comments and stuff, and it's just like another way for them to compare their status with someone else. And I agree, like I wish that we could just take that away, because it's such a distraction for kids, because that's not like where their mind needs to be focused on at this point in their development.
Totally, exactly. And I mean, we do it as adults, like we also like half of my Instagram that I use it for is like shopping for home decor. Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like we do the same thing. And so, yeah, it was just like, and it wasn't even like, he wasn't even like on Facebook or Instagram and like, oh, look at what they have or anything like that. It was just like they're just like used to texting.
It now.
Yeah, it was
like it's
crazy.
The expectation, the standard and the norm is like for you to reach people that way, or for people to reach out to you that way. And when they don't, you just feel like something's missing or disappointed by it.
And I asked him, I said, well, did you text any of your friends? Like, did you text them Merry Christmas? He was like, no. But it was like almost that like they're expecting this device to give them this like instant friendship, and not learning that like friendship takes work. Like it takes effort. It takes all these other things that like to build a friendship. Like where back in the day you had to go to your parents and say, hey, I want to have a sleepover and I want to, you know, and there was like thought and stuff put into it rather than just like, oh, they texted me on their phone. Like it's just different now.
Right. So, there weren't as many like play dates and hanging out with other people and families or communities coming together. So I can definitely see that. Oh,
so if you guys have and I think it's only an hour. So if you have kids or you're kind of, even if you're a grandparent and you're having kids in this like realm, like it's a really good just like educational thing.
Did you change anything after watching that show?
And I don't know if I changed it after watching the show, but just in 2020, I started putting like limits on my phone of like how long I'm on social media. So like each day it's like up to 2 hours or something, which is a lot. Like 2 hours a day on social media. But
you don't realize how quickly it goes.
It goes so fast. So I put that in, but I don't know if that was after I watched it or just kind of like in 2020 because you have a lot more free time being at home and I wanted that free time to be like productive.
Right. You know, that's one of the reasons why I only have an Instagram account is to limit my interaction on the phone and social media. And I used to have this rule where like the first hour and the last hour of the day, like I don't go on my phone at all.
That's awesome.
But lately I have been having a hard time waking up. And what's an easy like wake up or pick me up is to get on your Instagram account because that like endorphins or dopamine hits immediately and it like wakes me up. Exactly. So I need to break myself of that habit again and just wake up naturally. And go to bed earlier.
Yep.
All right. So my next television show, did you ever watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
I never watched like the full season or anything, but I've heard of it and watched a couple episodes. Yeah.
One of the guys on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia now has a show on Apple called Misik Quest. It is hilarious. It's about a startup video game company.
I'm already laughing.
Yeah, the leader of the company or like the brains behind it and the creative energy behind it is some like egotistical but totally like endearing, eccentric Elon Musk personality. And then his right hand, she's this like little Australian programmer who's like a total nerd and like very logical. And then there's like all these different characters sprinkled throughout, but it is so freaking funny. It's just so cute because it's like an easy watch. It's just about a startup of a company, but it has like a lot of heart behind it, the way that the coworkers interact with each other. And then there is usually like some sort of moral at the end of the series, you know, like the owner of the company, he becomes more tenderhearted or something, like he becomes less of an egomaniac. It's such a good show. I don't know if anyone has Apple TV because
I do.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
Do you have the Apple channel?
Yeah.
Okay, you should watch it. It's actually really cute and funny.
Yeah, that's cool. I like shows like that. That's like reminds me of like the Big Bang Theory, like the way you're describing it.
Yeah.
Where you can kind of just pick up on any episode and turn it on and it's going to make you laugh and just like entertain you. Because I think a lot of times we spend like watching TV shows. I watch some of my stuff. Chris calls it trash, but it's just
but what
like,
does he know?
Yeah. But it's like, you know, I don't know. It's not like funny where you're laughing and stuff. But I like ridiculousness for that reason because you can just turn it on and it's going to make you laugh. It's like this show with Rob Dyrdek. He owns the DC brand.
Who are you?
And they show like funny videos of people.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's so funny. Chris and I will watch it together and we just sit there and laugh. I would love to like film us watching ridiculousness. Because it's like the funniest thing.
Can you please? We're going to do an IG live of you watching ridiculousness.
Or the another one that we like is called the Impractical Jokers. We love them too. They have a crazy net worth. You have to anyway. They're funny and like I like their whole like they've been friends for forever and now like with quarantine they're doing like a dinner party where like they have to do it from their house and they're all like Skyped in and then like one of them will like order dinner for all of them or like they have like a different theme each night so they'll come like dressed up. It's funny. Like it just makes you laugh. I like shows like that too.
Cool. This is a whole new side of you. I had no idea. Ridiculousness and Impractical Jokers. Basically, Emily likes MTV.
Basically.
Do you also play video games?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not a video gamer.
Just making sure I know you.
Let me see. So one of my top ones, which I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but it's called Married at First Sight.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Every year there's a new season. And this year it was actually interesting because it was during quarantine and they weren't allowed to film. So they match up these couples based on different criteria. So they make them do, like they have to go through like sex education, I think, a psychology evaluation, like
religion, spirituality.
Yep. A bunch of different things. And then like they meet with these different counselors like in different areas and they're basically matched together based on like all different kinds of things. And they've actually had a lot of success like in their short amount of time. A lot of the couples have stayed married and like had kids and like they're actually like it's worked out. Wow. So now they've started to go from like different cities. So I think the first one I watched was like in Texas, but this year's was in New Orleans. And then it goes through like where the shutdown happens and like how that affected like different couples in their young
gosh.
marriage. So it's really interesting. Like some couples, it really brought them closer together and they ended up staying married. And then other couples, it like did the exact opposite. Like they couldn't even make the full quarantine together. And so it was interesting because like they didn't, when they first started the show, they had no idea that was going to happen, nothing. And then it just like that kind of hit mid-season and they had to run with it because they couldn't
But
even.
it probably worked in their favor because
Yeah.
it like mixed up the formula of the show a little bit.
And it's crazy to see like quarantine happening like in a different city, like because a lot of these couples, they put them at an apartment complex and it was like on Bourbon Street, and one of the girls went out to get soup because one of the husbands was sick, and she goes to get her husband's soup and she's going down Bourbon Street on her bike and there's nobody. And like the shops are all closed. It was like kind of creepy. Like it just like, wow, you know, because like in Arizona, like we're so like spread out. Like, yeah, we have bigger parts of the city and stuff, but like there's not like one street that's like always like, you know, tourists
Poppin'.
and like, yeah, you know, so like to see it from a different perspective was interesting.
It'd be like at Disneyland and no one is there.
Yeah.
Or like New York City.
Yeah, exactly. But I like the whole like psychology behind it. But don't watch, there's an Australian version that they have now put out. It's not even related to the same company that does this. It's just like an awful spinoff that they did that's like those other dating shows that they do. So I don't even think there's like the psychology behind it. It's like about winning money. So stick with like
They're
the
not
American
doing it
version.
for the right reasons.
Yeah.
There's a show on Netflix that's actually kind of like that.
Is that the one where they're in their cubes? Yeah, I like that one too. That was popular. Love is Blind.
Yeah, that one. We watched it. Okay, so my next show is The Hill. And this has Kevin Bacon in it, and I think it's on Showtime, but it's about the corrupt city council, politicians, police force in Chicago in the 90s. So good. It's fiction, but it has like all the elements that I like. If you're someone who likes shows like House of Cards or NYPD Blue and all of that, you'll love this. That's it.
That's it.
That's my recommendation.
Sold. I kind of have like a cop one. It's called Bosch and it's spelled
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you watched that show. I feel like that's
have you watched
risque
it?
For you.
Well, I watch it. These are like where my boundary is, like where I watch some shows with Chris and like he knows like it has to be like, you know, it can be scary, but it can't be like super scary because he knows I won't watch it or he won't get to watch the whole season because I can't watch it. So, but that's one that I like. It was basically, it's about a police officer. He has like a bad childhood. He lost his mom when he was young. So he's kind of like that police officer that's out to like, you know, do a really good job and help people and make a difference. But he also has like an alcohol addiction and that affects him in different ways. And he has a daughter and he also went through a divorce. So he's kind of got like a sad story. So he can relate to a lot of like the victims that he comes across or like things that he's thrown into. But I liked it. And I think they have like 3 or 4 seasons. And we watched all of them and we liked it together.
Oh.
But it's like shoot 'em up, you know.
Shoot 'em up.
Cops and robbers type stuff. If you're into that. Action.
Oh my gosh. I know Jesse used to watch that show. We haven't watched it in quite some time. I don't think I could get into it. I've heard it's a really good show. And the guy from Bosch was actually interviewed on a podcast that I like.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the actor. But now I feel like I should give a better review of The Hill.
No, that's good.
I just don't have anything else to say about it other than I like it. All right, so the next show that I have, this one was a really surprising. I didn't think that I was gonna really like it. We watched it because there was nothing else on TV at the time. Escape at Dannemora. Ben Stiller is the director. Okay. The comedy actor Ben Stiller. He directs this one, and it's a mini series based on a true story of New York prison inmates who escape a prison.
Interesting.
And Benicio del Toro is in it, along with the weird-looking kid from There Will Be Blood, Paul Dano. Okay. And Patricia Arquette. Patricia Arquette is freaking phenomenal in this show. Do you know who she is?
I don't know like actors though.
Okay. She is stunning, like a stunning person. The woman her and then the guy who plays her husband, they get totally into character and they look almost exactly like the people that they're playing, or at least they favor them in their mannerisms and stuff. But when you see the real actors, you're just like, oh my gosh, they should both win awards for these parts. Like they got so into it. The show is also really gritty and it goes through the whole planning of the escape, mental preparation that they did, all of the manipulation that they did of the system, like the people who were in charge of them and supposed to make sure that they were safely inside the prison. They were both working for a sewing shop where they like made uniforms and stuff within the prison, working for Patricia Arquette's character. and then they get into a sexual relationship with her.
Interesting.
And then they have her smuggle in supplies to one of the guys because he's an artist. And so they're saying, oh, this is for art that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then they use that to dig their way out of the prison. And they end up escaping, and then they end up getting caught.
That's so crazy. What happens to Patricia? Does she get in trouble?
Oh, yeah. They all like went to prison. Like they either died or went back to prison. Wow. And then the one guy who ends up digging his way out of the prison, he is like an engineer. He is so freaking brilliant. So there's two different people in it. And I think that this is really indicative of any relationship or any type of working relationship, even at work. There's one guy who's like the master manipulator. He's the salesman. He's the smooth talker, but he's not really a doer. He's just good at getting people to do what he wants. He's not even that brilliant or smart. He's just really brilliant at manipulating people. And then there's the guy who's the expert, who's the engineer, who does all the work and can figure everything out. And he is the grunt man, basically. But those two end up meeting together and making like a perfect pair.
Right.
Yeah. And then they end up escaping. And whilst they're escaping, the guy, Benicio del Toro's character, who's like the master manipulator of the group, like ends up kind of like putting them in jeopardy and like slowing them down. But the other guy never leaves them because he's loyal to them. And that's how they get caught, is because he got slowed down. He was like miles, like a mile or feet away from the border and got caught.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's just like a really interesting show. First of all, by the prison escape. And it's like the prison outside is like nothing you've ever seen before. Like people have lots outside where they can like have their own cookout, or they can grow a garden. Like these inmates have their own little patch of like land in the backyard. And so it's like really interesting just because the prison environment is unique. And I think it's maybe a lower security prison because they're in the middle of a town, and everyone who works in that town also like works for the prison system. So it's just like an interesting like look into a different world or life that you and I would never know of.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Chris would probably like that.
Yeah. But then also like the human relationship aspect of it. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Because I feel like anytime there's ever been a prison break, they're like reliant on other people to somehow like.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And some of the people like, no, I want to say one of the characters, so Patricia Arquette's character does become aware of the plan to escape. But then some people don't know at all.
Right.
And they're just like, you know, there's corruption within prisons. Like, I think everyone knows that, you know, like favors and stuff. And so there's a guard who's helping them out. And he gets art because he like collects art from this prisoner. And so he'll like do favors for him, but not really knowing like that he's helping him escape. He's just thinking he's doing this to get artwork out of the prisoner.
That's so crazy.
And it's based on a true story.
Yeah.
And the guy that I think is like the most interesting one is the guy who figured out how to dig his way out of this freaking prison.
Yeah.
I'm like, imagine if he had never fallen into this life of crime, what type of like genius he could have been. Yeah.
I think that's sometimes though too, right? Sometimes you can be too brilliant, like for your own good, that maybe gets you in trouble. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have that problem.
I struggle with it. It's a line. It's a fine line for me.
Okay, my other TV show, and you might chime in on this one, is The Bachelor and Bachelorette.
You watched this season? Which season?
I've watched all of them. I continue to watch them. But I think this year it was like, not only did they have to change things up because of everything going on in the world.
I was not going to watch Claire's season. As soon as I was, okay. I know this is your pick, but I just want to say before you say anything, I was so excited that they picked this 40-year-old woman to be the Bachelorette because I'm like, this is more believable. The fact that someone who is like over 40, she's going to date a lot of other guys who are over 40 who are willing to go on national TV and like vie for her affection, because it is harder to date the older you get because a lot of the eligible people are already in relationships. But then when I saw her list of candidates, and they were like 24, I was like, get out of here. I can't watch this. There's nothing in this for me that makes it any
well, and believable. I had this same thought, but at this point, I'm so committed to The Bachelor. I was like, I'm just not going to let that sway me.
Chris is really going to sell me on this season.
And then it's funny what like turned around was like, she like from the day one, she had like picked the guy that she already knew she wanted. So
what do you mean?
Her season only lasted like she only had like 3 episodes.
What?
Yeah, because she picked the guy that she wanted, and she did not connect like or was so like infatuated with him, she didn't connect with any of the other guys. So they gave her this perfect opportunity of, hey, here's 30 guys and they're still together. Her and the guy, and they got engaged with
How
literally
old is he?
Going on 3 dates. I think he's like 28.
And she's like 45.
Yeah. But they're still together. It's crazy.
That is so crazy.
It's so crazy.
I mean,
so
she is a really pretty 40-year-old lady.
Get this. So then they were only like 3 seasons in, and all these men are like, what the fuck?
I need to be Instagram famous.
Yeah, like,
this ain't going to help me.
This was my like career move here. I gave up my attorney
how am I
job.
sell vitamins with 3 episodes?
Yeah. So then they brought in a new Bachelorette.
Oh, that's why they had the
Tasha.
Because I was like, when was Tasha Bachelorette?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I actually really like Tasha. Like I like her
she
personality.
Was so
she's so cute. She's fun.
She seemed real.
Yeah, she's real. Like, yeah, I like her. So then they brought her in, and then she gets to like finish out the season. But then they brought her in. It was they're already 3 seasons in, right? So they brought in more guys. And so then she had like an even bigger pool. And then it was like the guys that were already there were like, oh my God, well now we have to make a connection with somebody else. Like, and then there was like, I think there was 1 or 2 guys that left because they just like did start having feelings for Claire, and they just didn't feel like it was right to like stay and try to like date somebody else. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like so soon. I guess some of the guys that had like one-on-ones, they just decided that it wasn't for them or whatever. So it was interesting. It was like a whole like change up, mix up. So I'm glad I tuned in.
Oh.
And now they have The Bachelor with Matt James.
Oh my gosh. Have you watched it?
So yeah, I'm finally caught up because of our whole move situation. But
thoughts?
I really liked it. I
love
that
him.
he opened with a prayer. Like when he was like, I've been thinking, what did he say? He's like, I've been thinking about so much like what to say to you guys. I've had all this time and I just want to like pray. Like I really liked that.
I love him. This is probably beyond my 2021 list of best TV shows.
Really?
Yes. The Bachelor has lost me for quite some time just because I'm not that into the Bachelor or the Bachelorette. Yeah. And I think that the contestants aren't that great either. Yeah. And also like it's become more and more ridiculous. And you have to sell me a little bit on the fantasy that all these people are there. Like we all know it's BS. Right. But if you're going to have this show, you have to sell me on the fantasy that they're all there really fighting for him. Right.
You know, like this person's worth.
Yes, yes. And most of the times they're not. I'm like, he's like a sales accountant. And I'm like, you couldn't find that on Tinder? Like you had to go on this TV show. Obviously, you're here so that you can sell teeth whitener one day. Or start your own bikini brand, whatever it is that you girls do when you're done with the show. And then I will say that the contestants haven't been that attractive either.
Really? That's so funny.
You think that they're all super hot?
Yeah, but I think they're like
they're butter faces.
And like,
do you know what that is?
I don't know. No, what's
everything's hot butter face. Great bodies, but then the face, I'm like, maybe like a 5, a 4.
I've never.
You've never heard anyone say butterface? You don't have butter faces on Montana?
No.
No, you got butter bodies in Montana.
Yep.
She got a real pretty face.
So bad.
Got them childbearing hips.
Big boned.
Johnny ain't much to look at, but he gonna treat you right.
He's got a nice truck. A boy can drive a truck and he can hunt.
I love it. That's all you need. The simple life. That would be nice.
No, but I liked too like his pick for the rose.
Yeah, the deaf girl.
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes they always go off of like. I think she's a mix.
I think she looks half Korean. She looks exactly like one of my friends.
You're going to take credit for her being Korean. Here we go. Oh,
she looks like exactly like one of my friends, Nikki. She looks just like her. And she's half Korean, so I feel like it's the same.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? Like, because I feel like sometimes they usually give the rose off of like who they think is like the cutest or like, I don't know. It's like more superficial, but I actually like that like they had a good conversation and stuff. So
yeah, all of his girls are the prettiest girls I've ever seen on The Bachelor. Don't you think for like one Bachelor contestant?
Yeah, but I think they're always pretty. I don't know if that's because they're always like dressed in like glamorous outfits, and you got to give the girls credit. They do all their own hair and makeup, unless you're like the lead.
No, the first night they do
Bachelor.
They get their hair and makeup done.
I didn't know that.
Only in the first night and the final ceremonies.
And the final. Okay. Because I was listening to other podcasts. They have to dress themselves. They have to do their hair. They have to do their makeup. And like throughout the show.
Yeah. And some girls spend like $20,000 on a wardrobe before they go.
I met one. Not met. I did not meet her.
My friend Caitlin Bristow.
I did not meet her. But she spent, not Caitlin, it was somebody else. I can't remember. But she spent like $40,000.
Shut up.
And of course, she took it out on debt
credit?
because she just got out of college.
Do they make money
And
afterwards?
she got this opportunity to go. I don't know. Probably not. She's probably still waitressing at Hooters, but I don't know. You know what I mean?
Getting a sugar daddy on like TikTok.
Whatever. I mean, do what you got to do. But yeah, I was like, oh my, that's a lot of money to spend on clothes.
I want to spend $40,000 on clothes.
Like, I feel bad if I spend like $400.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True.
Because you really have everything you need. You don't need. But I guess if you're on a TV show where
oh yeah, you're gonna show up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then too, I would feel like I would be that person. I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna get that far. We just need like 5 outfits. I think we can get that for under $1,000. Like, you know what I mean? I just wouldn't have that enough confidence to be like, I'm really gonna make it. That this $40,000 is gonna have a good ROI.
Well, I think for Matt, you would have bought $40,000 worth of clothes.
I don't know, and I like him, but I don't know if I like. I think a lot of times with the guys, it like depends on how they treat the girls as the season goes on.
So far, he is a prince.
So far, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But just now, like the drama is starting, and like
that Queen Victoria girl is so freaking annoying.
But she's like the one they pay to keep on there.
Well, obviously, look at her.
Like the one that they keep to, you know.
She wore sweatpants to one of the dates.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes. I was like, who wears sweatpants? It was like a matching tie-dye sweatpant outfit.
Oh, you know what? I have had to be watching it on the app, so I'm not caught up.
Oh, I've only seen 2 episodes, and I have lots of strong opinions about everyone already. My favorite girls, there's a pretty Latina girl who she's got like full lips, big eyes. She's really cute. And then there's the girl from North Carolina who drove the truck.
Oh yeah, she's cool.
I really like her. She's really pretty. I like the girl he went on a date with in the hot tub.
Bree. I think
that's
her
know
name.
the names and everything. The deaf girl's really cute. Like, there's a lot of girls on there that are like, oh, they seem like nice girls, or like they have good personalities. A lot of the girls have good personalities. The model girl who is bald, I didn't think she was cute at all at first, but like after seeing her and her smile so cute and like getting to know her more, I'm like, oh, you're adorable.
Yeah.
But a lot of the girls are like that. Like, either immediately I was like, oh my gosh, she's so pretty, or they seem to be like nice.
Yeah.
Even the dildo girl.
Going for them.
Even the dildo girl
she
is
was
nice.
Funny.
Yeah.
Well, and I was like, that was such a smart move, because obviously they're going to keep her.
They're going to keep the dildo girl.
Of course.
But
like, how do you get rid of dildo on the first day? No, you can't.
But Jesse was like, if you
can't.
can make the dildo girl look sane, Victoria, you're a freaking nutbag.
I just wonder, and like, you know, they're gonna make Victoria like the villain of this year, but like, how do you come out of a show like that being the villain and then you also get to sell teeth whitener? Like, what is it that you get to sell?
She gets to do, she's gonna be like part of
like
the
scarves?
Bachelor legacy.
Oh, okay.
She's gonna probably hit the podcast circuit, probably go on Paradise. And any other Bachelor affiliated shows.
That's true.
Yeah.
But it's not like they make money going on these shows. Like, they just get a free vacation.
Yeah, but I think
And,
that
like,
like
the
if you can
following?
get more followers and stuff, you can do
Interesting.
whatever. I mean, it depends. Hey, we can't.
Too bad I'm married. Married and having a baby. They've reached out so many times.
I know. You're on the producer
I don't
speed
think I
dial.
could do it. I wouldn't want everyone knowing, like,
I couldn't
know,
hang out
it's
with the
weird.
girls every day.
No, I couldn't either. I'm so introverted. I'd be like that weird one.
Yeah, and like when they're like, "Oh my gosh, there's another note from Matt," it would just be my face like this, and everyone would be like, "Yay!" And I'd be like, "What does it say?"
Who's Matt? Yeah, just read it, Becca. God,
Yeah.
we'd be the bitchy ones. That's so bad.
But I do love watching it. Let us know what you guys think. But for next season, doing a Bachelorette podcast, just reviewing the episodes of the Bachelorette.
No, we're not following.
I want to. Shut up.
No, you don't even watch
You're
it.
not part of the audience.
You didn't even know about the Bachelorette.
Okay, what about Jesse and I doing a Bachelor review podcast?
Yes, you should. Which we talked about that. We were going to have our husbands do a podcast with us.
I still want to do that. It would be so fun.
I think so too.
Okay.
Well, you'll have the equipment, so you might as well.
All right. We're going to do Bachelor reviews.
And then I can make Chris do it. If you and Jesse do it, Chris will be like, well, we have to do it
I
now.
know. And he wants to be better. He's going to say more controversial stuff than we are.
He'll get us kicked off the pod. It would just be fun. I think it'd be fun for them to hear themselves. Maybe we'd get some more listens out of it.
I know. And then we'll be like, see, it's not as easy as you think.
Exactly.
Talking is a gift and a talent. All right. What's your next? Oh, you said The Bachelor. All right. So my last show recommendation from 2020 is this docuseries Love Fraud. It was also on like Showtime or Cinemax, one of these types of channels. And it's about a guy who frauded women out of hundreds of thousands of dollars by pretending to fall in love with them. And he pretended to be a very wealthy businessman, would meet a girl on a dating site, and then tell them that he was coming into money from a medical malpractice suit or from a business venture. And then make all of these extravagant plans for the life that they were going to have, and have them use their lines of credit to invest into cars, boats, houses in foreign countries, and then skip out on them. And then these women would be left with all of this debt, or like depleting all of their savings, and just absolutely heartbroken, traumatized, humiliated. And this guy is free. Because the fraud that he got convicted of only had like a limited sentences to it. And so this docuseries follows this group of women who banded together, found each other because someone was like someone posted a website about how this guy, trying to warn women of this guy, how he was a predator of women. And then like as women would get frauded by him, they would look him up online, find this website, and then start contributing their own stories to it. And then if they ever saw him on another dating site or starting to prey on another girl, they would try to warn that girl about him. And then they found a bounty hunter to try to get him caught so that he could be brought in on a warrant. So this whole show follows like these women trying to find this man and bring him to justice. And it's so interesting and absolutely breaking and absolutely heartbreaking. And the thing is, when you first watch this show, you're like, how can you be so stupid? Why would you ever do that?
That's my first thought.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to scream.
But then as you hear these stories, like he really preyed on like vulnerable women who were lonely. And it wasn't just like a one and done. It would be like after 2 or 3 months of you and Chris dating, just like you know him, and then him telling you something, and you're just more likely to believe him because everything he has shown you has been honest, truthful, and faithful. And like he's able to back up his story that like, if he was like, oh yeah, my dad owns his own business and, he's going to pay me a bonus, but I really want us to like go on this vacation now. So if you just put it on your credit card and we can go, then I'll just pay you back when my dad gives me my bonus. And you'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that.
Like that's how oh wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I want to watch that.
It's actually really good. It's
because that's my first thought right away. It's like, oh my gosh, were these girls crazy? Because you've seen those other TV shows where they like date guys in prison and like all this stuff. I'm like,
a lot of this. Some of these women are very like intelligent, educated women, but
he's like a big con.
It's such a con. It is such a con. And I listened to the accompanying podcast to it, called Real Crime Profile, where the producers and directors of this documentary came on and they were interviewed, and the hosts of the show are former FBI analysts. And so they break down exactly how he was able to get away with everything and con these women. And it's not as simple as these women are stupid, because they're not.
Yeah. Wow, that's so interesting. There's a TV show kind of like, not like that, but it's called Sneaky Pete. Have you seen it?
I love Giovanni Ribisi, but I've never watched the show.
And Chris and his brothers, they love it. But it's like, he's basically a big con, and he basically like goes and cons like a whole family. And I don't know how it ends. I only watched a couple. But anyway, Chris liked it. So if you need another show, there you go.
Oh, thank you. Bonus.
But my last one is Ozark. Did you ever watch this?
Oh my gosh. Every time we talk about shows, you always say Ozark.
Do I? Okay. Well, they had another season come out in March of this year. And then they're having another season 4 come out in 2021. Supposedly they were supposed to film in fall, so I don't know if that's like been a thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's like it's one of those shows. It's creepy. It's like drugs and cops, and it's a lot of scary things, but it's also not like to the point where it's like super scary. Like there are some points where I can't watch certain parts.
Okay, let's pause and slow this down for our audience. What exactly is an example of a scary thing?
I don't like war movies.
No, like what happened in the show that you were like, oh, my eyes.
Like, they're like suffocating this guy with a bag over his head. I can't watch stuff like that. I just can't. Like, can you imagine like what a slow death that is of like being suffocated? Oh my God.
No, but I just love that you have such a pure imagination.
So I close my eyes
You're so
and then
cute.
I plug my ears and I tell Chris to tell me when it's over so I can continue watching.
Not like he's like getting his head chopped off. No. Just like, the bag's over his head.
Yeah, and he's like in a basement. I mean, it's scary.
And it's dark.
And it's always dark. That's how I can tell when a scary part's coming up. It gets darker. But that's a show we watch together. So I always like to have like a good balance of like things we can watch together and then like my trash TV, like Chris calls it. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, those are my shows.
Oh, I think we had a good round list of shows. Something for everyone.
Yeah. Some documentaries, some different things. Yeah.
A little bit of trashiness.
A little bit of scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed our list of shows from 2020. So if you have any shows that you liked, or if you watched any of these shows and have thoughts, then let us know. We're going to be posting about this on our Instagram and starting conversations with y'all. So I hope that this year we get a little bit more engaged and we can have more conversations back and forth. And it's not just us talking, but also you responding to us, because I think that's really fun too. But until next time, like I said, stay connected to us on our Instagram, Best Friends at Work Podcast. If you would like to support this show, you can find us on Patreon, Best Friends at Work Podcast once again. And until next time, hope you all have a great week, and we can't wait to talk to you again. Bye.
See you guys.